Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are watching this video lecture. In the earlier class, in relation to Business Economics Unit 2 of Chapter 1, we discussed about some of the features of capitalist economies, wherein the major two characteristics of a capitalist economy will be: one, the existence of private property; two, the driving force of such economy being profit motive. In addition to that, there are other general features also in relation to the people, whether producers or consumers, having a freedom of enterprise and a freedom of economic choice and consumer sovereignty. Also, a very less intervention by the government or state, and competition as some of the features of capitalist economies. We discussed that in the earlier class. Now let us understand how the capitalist economy will try to address the issues that any economy faces. The same questions will come once again: what to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce, and how much provision should be made for future growth. Same questions will be there irrespective of the economy or the economic system, but the way the economic system answers them definitely will not be same. So, how the capitalist system addresses these questions, let us understand them quickly. Mostly the capitalist system has only one characteristic feature, which will be determining, or we can say giving solutions to all other problems that any economy faces. So what is that? Simply the price mechanism. That is the answer for all questions that capitalism gives. Any question asked, what to produce, how will you decide? Price mechanism will decide. Then what is price mechanism? Basically it is the demand and supply of various goods and services. And basically what does it mean? That is the forces of market which determine the methods to solve the central problems for any economy. So ultimately the capitalist economies will give answers to these all central economic problems with price mechanism, demand and supply, and market forces. Market forces, once again, is not about one person. These are all impersonal forces of market. Impersonal. Demand is not created by one person. Supply is not created by one person. Many people put together create a demand and supply. And as a mechanism of demand and supply creates the price mechanism, that will solve the entire problems of market economy, laissez-faire economy, or capitalist economy, because there is no central planning authority. As far as capitalist economy is concerned, there is no central planning authority. So there is no central planning authority, then how the economy functions? That has to function still without any central planning authority also. How does a car manufacturer know whether to manufacture cars or not? How does a cloth manufacturer know what kind of cloth he has to manufacture? So everywhere there is a question mark. And all those questions are answered by only one thing: demand and supply. And simply that can be called as price mechanism. So whatever the answers we try to derive for the questions, ultimately they all lead to the same solution, that is demand and supply or price mechanism. Let us go through them just quickly one by one. What to produce? Of course, what to produce is a very important decision for the businesses also, for the country or economy as a whole also. So what the answer will be? What to produce? How an answer will be given to this? Simply, what to produce are those goods which the consumers wish to buy. So there is no rocket science in that. What to produce? If that is a question, answer is, okay, you have to produce those goods which the consumers wish to buy. Means where there is demand for them. If they are wishing to buy, if they are willing to buy, then only there is demand for them. When there is demand for some type of goods, then only you will produce. That is how the market economy works, the capitalist economy works. Taking for example, like consumers want more cars. Naturally, there will be increase in the demand for cars. So more cars will be produced. Imagine there is no demand for cars. Like in the recent past, even in the second half of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, the demand in the automobile industry in India is very less. So what it has resulted in? It has resulted in the lesser production of cars. So when there is more demand, more cars will be produced. If there is less demand, less cars will be produced. As a reaction to the demand of the consumers, the manufacturers will adjust their production policies. So simply, what to produce is once again is answered by market. Market means in this case consumers. And how they are telling, are they going to go to the manufacturer and tell him in the ear, boss, I need a car, please manufacture for me. Nobody is going to tell like that. But in the way of identifying the demand for the cars or demand for any product or service, the producers of or providers of goods or services will decide what to produce. Imagine if there is a demand for some type of product is less. So naturally that will not be produced much. So what to produce is decided by what? It's a simple way. Easy to say. Practically it is the biggest challenge that manufacturers face. That's a different story. But the capitalist economy creates such kind of complications by answering these questions with market as an answer. So which everything is left to the market. What has to be produced? Produce those goods which the consumers wish to buy. Easy to say. But the question is always about practically what is the difficulty? How do you know that consumers wish to buy? How do you know that consumers do not wish to buy? That is the biggest challenge which every service provider or every goods manufacturer will face in a capitalist economy, because it is difficult to capture the whims and fancies of the consumers, wishes of the consumers. So that is why gauging the consumer behavior and demand is going to be a very challenging task for the manufacturers. But in spite of that, there is no option for them. They will produce according to what consumers are liking. So ultimately, what to produce is decided by consumers, not by the producers directly. Consumers will show their intention, their preference by spending on the goods what they want. And accordingly, the manufacturers will get a signal. Oh, that means this type of goods consumers are liking. Means this is the kind of goods I have to produce. That will be indirectly communicated to the manufacturers by whom? Consumers. So though it looks like the manufacturer decides what to produce, in reality, the essence of this question is answered by ultimately consumers. And how they communicate? Not by verbal or any other type of communication with the manufacturers. They automatically show their preference by spending on the goods which they want, by buying those goods which they want, by taking those services which they want. That automatically creates a tendency in the market that will be captured by the service providers and goods manufacturers. According to the consumers' preferences, tastes and wishes, the question of what to produce, answers will change. That is how the capitalist system addresses this central question of what to produce. Simply, consumers' wishes will tell us what to produce. Then, how to produce is the next question, as we know. How to produce is basically about technology. How to produce is about technology. So what is the main point here to be noted? Of course, every manufacturer, every producer would like to use the best technology. But that is again wish only. Is it possible always? That is very difficult. Always to have the best technology in all cases. Yes, some of the manufacturers in the world have the best technology and they are using them. But not everybody can afford that. Not every country and every economy has access to that technology also sometimes. So according to the available resources, how to produce will be answered. So what technique of production will be used? This is the point to be noted. what technique of production will be used? That technique of production which will minimize his cost of production. That technique will be used. So it's a common sense point. Of course, that will be the idea of a manufacturer to use a particular technology which minimizes the cost of production as much as possible. But that does not mean he can use whatever he wants. He has to use these resources according to their availability only. What to produce is at least something that can be traced in the market. By observing the trends, by observing the tastes and preferences of the consumers, what to produce can be decided at least. But how to produce is not always your choice. How to produce also has a lot of limitations. I want to produce using the best possible technology in the world, but I don't have money to buy that machinery. How can I produce with that? Not possible. Means what? How to produce definitely has limitations of resources. Within the available resources, wherever there is availability of resources relatively cheap, that will be used as a methodology of how to produce. The technique of how to produce will be chosen by basically one factor, that is cost. Cost of production, wherever it is minimum, wherever it is less, such technique shall be ideally chosen. For example, if labor is relatively cheap, labor intensive method will be used. If labor is costlier, naturally capital intensive method will be used. That is why, depending upon the prices of the factors of production, that is the answer here to the question. What is going to decide how to produce? The relative prices of factors of production. Understand these words very carefully. Factors of production include many things, all the resources, land, labor, capital, organization. Nowadays they are calling it in different ways. We are calling them using M as a keyword or key letter. So we can call them as like, men, machinery, methods, money also. All these things are factors of production. Materials is another one. So depending upon their prices, how to produce will be also determined. What to produce is different. How to produce is also different depending upon the prices of factors of production. What are the factors of production? For understanding purposes, you can just use these M things: men, materials, machines, money, and methods. So if any of the materials is cheaper in one particular country or economy, let us say, they might use that material for production of certain items. But for the same material, other countries may not use the technique. They may use something else. Just if you take an example, say in India, mostly the sugar is manufactured from sugarcane. Everybody knows that. Sugarcane is a material which is one of the factors of production which has to be inputted in the production process. That is sugarcane. Because it is cheap, because it is relatively cheap. So sugar is manufactured in India using sugarcane. Maybe in some other countries, sugar is manufactured from beetroot also. But in India, we don't do that. Why? In India, cultivating beetroot is not relatively cheap. Cultivating sugar is cheap. Cultivating sugar is easier in India, which has been done through many decades. So some countries may use beetroot as a material for producing sugar. Some other countries may use sugarcane as a material for manufacture of sugar. That is their choice. How to produce? How to produce the sugar? Should we produce it from beetroot or should we produce it from sugarcane? It's a choice to be made. Depends upon what? Whichever is cheaper, sir. Whatever is cheaper, that only we will use naturally. So like that, for anything, how to produce, the technology that we use, the materials that we use, it all depends upon the availability of those resources, first point. And not only the availability, second point is what is the cost of those resources, what is the relative cost of the factors of production. That will have a huge impact on deciding how to produce. So what to produce is decided by the price mechanism, simply speaking, that is demand and supply. Ultimately, consumers will show the preferences by buying the goods what they want, which will be understood by the suppliers as, okay, these are the goods we have to produce. Then how to produce it is related to the cost of production. How to produce will be decided whichever technique makes the cost of production minimum according to the available resources and according to the relative prices of the factors of production or resources. This decision of how to produce will be taken in a capitalist economy. And for whom to produce? This is another question that we have. So that will be produced for those people who have the buying capacity. Simple. There is once again no big question mark here. Theoretically speaking, looks very simple. What to produce also looks very simple. What to produce? Whatever consumers want. How to produce? Whichever is cheaper and whichever is available. For whom to produce? Whoever has the buying capacity. Answers are look very simple. Practically, those are very complicated questions, but theoretically they look very simple. So, what is the answer for this question? For whom to produce? Simply for those who have the buying capacity. Then, the biggest challenge is what? How do you know about whether people have buying capacity or not? That is a challenge. That is where the markets will struggle to understand for whom to produce, who have the buying capacity, and whoever has the buying capacity of a particular type of product, there will be product which is produced for those type of people according to their buying capacity. And naturally, when the incomes are higher, buying capacity also will be higher, and in general demand for goods also will be higher when the incomes are higher. When the incomes are not there, when the incomes are lower, buying capacity or purchasing power, that is what called generally in the macroeconomic terminology, that will be more when the incomes are higher, that will be less when the incomes are lesser. And depending upon the buying capacity of the segments of customers, the companies will decide for whom to produce. Just once again to take an example, for whom to produce. Let us say the same question is asked or encountered by Mercedes-Benz company. So Mercedes-Benz wants to answer this question for whom to produce. The answer is not going to be for everybody. No, everybody cannot buy Mercedes-Benz. Not possible. Those who have the buying capacity can only buy that car. So for whom to produce? Only upper middle class and rich segment of the society only will be affording our car. So we will manufacture only for them. They will not manufacture lakhs and lakhs of cars and push it in the showrooms. No, they will not do that. They will only manufacture for a very small segment of the society, which is upper middle class and rich class society, which can afford to buy that car. For whom to produce? Answer depends upon the buying capacity. On the other hand, though it is not produced now, just imagine the Tata Nano car earlier, which was released by the Tata company, was a small car with the original target of releasing it at a 1 lakh rupees budget, though it has crossed 1 lakh rupees later, but still the idea is still the same. What was the answer by Tata company when they manufactured the nano cars? For whom to produce? For whom to produce? For whom they produced it? Not for Ambani. Ambani is not going to go in a Tata car or nano car. Even Ratan Tata himself is not going to go or roam in nano car. No, nano car is not for them. Nano car is not for the upper segment of the society. It is for the lower middle class and middle class. So those who can afford a bike, who want to go in the car, but still they don't have that much money to buy a car normally, for them this particular product was positioned. So for whom to produce, they also have identified those people who have the buying capacity of at least 1 to 2 lakhs. But they don't have the buying capacity of other cars like 4 lakhs, 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs. No, they don't have that much buying capacity, but still they have a buying capacity of 1 to 2 lakhs. So for that segment, this particular product has been targeted. Like that, the manufacturers will always keep their target customers in mind. For whom to produce, for whom to render the services, always there will be a segment. Always there will be a particular strata of the society for whom the manufacturer or service provider will give or render or manufacture their goods or services according to the buying capacity of the consumer. These are different companies. But look at the other side of it. Same company will have different brands also with different prices. The company which is marketing them is same. For example, Unilever will have different brands of soaps and shampoos. Some of them will be expensive, some of them will be cheap. So target customers are not the same. Expensive ones are those who have higher incomes. Cheaper ones are those who have lower incomes. So naturally, for whom to produce always depends upon the buying capacity of the consumers. According to that, the manufacturers will take a decision on who are their target customers. That is the third question which the capitalist economy answers. Answer is what? Buying capacity of the consumers. So what is the answer for what to produce? Whatever customers want. Second, what is the answer for how to produce? Whichever gives the lowest cost of production. Then the third question, for whom to produce? Whoever has buying capacity of our product or service. For them only production will happen. Then what about the other things like consumption, savings and investments? We talked about not entire production is going to be consumed. A bit of that, a portion of that is going to be saved and a portion of that is going to be invested for future purposes. How much to be done? On what basis this savings and investment will be done in an economy which is a capitalist economy. But understand this here, these are all not happening by the same people. Consumption are done by whom? Consumption and savings are done by consumers. Let us call all individuals are going to do that. Ultimately, for any product or service, the final destination is a human being only. That is a point we have to always keep in mind. Whatever that may be. Ultimately, the final consumer of any product or service, in between it would have changed hands of 100 different companies, doesn't matter. Finally, all of this effort is happening for whose benefit? For an individual only, for a human being only this is happening. Anything that is happening in the world as an economic activity ultimately is happening for the benefit of a human being only. You can take any example, ultimately it lands up with a human being only. And that human being is what we are calling as consumer. So who consumes something which has already been produced. He will do that. That individual will do that. And individuals only will save also. Saving also is done by people. That is individuals, human beings will save some money. It's a simple logic. There is no big rocket science in this. Simply if you just understand. Somebody will have some income. And that income, in that income, some portion of that income will be consumed. And when there is some portion of income that is consumed, remaining portion of income is going to be definitely saving. So imagine there is income which is earned by whom? Individuals, and in that certain portion of that income is going to be consumed, certain portion of that income is going to be saved. That's a common thing. Imagine some middle class person has say 40,000 rupees income per month. In that he spends 30,000 rupees, let us say, that is consumption. And what about the remaining 10,000 rupees? That is savings. That will remain in his bank account as part of his savings. So savings and consumption, who does it? That is by consumers. Now, what happens to this savings? The savings, whatever we keep in banks or some other places, be it in the form of mutual funds, be it in the form of buying the shares, be it in the form of purchasing any debentures, bonds, investments, anything that people do, individuals, as a kind of parking their excessive money at some place. How do they park it? That can change. The typical way of saving for many people is keeping that money in the banks or post offices. So let us stick to one example. Say the same individual has earned some income, he consumed some money and saved some money in the bank. In our example, he earned say 40,000, consumed 30,000, saved 10,000 rupees per month. Like this, in a year he has saved 1,20,000 rupees. What the bank is doing with that? Is the bank just sleeping on that? No, bank is not just keeping that savings idle. What will the bank do? The bank will give that money to entrepreneurs and that money will be invested by the entrepreneurs. So whatever the saving that this person has, that will be ultimately converted into what? Ultimately it will be converted into another investment. By whom? By some entrepreneur. So an individual who has an income will consume some part and save some part. That saving will be converted to investment by the entrepreneurs. But this will not happen automatically. That is why in between these two, savings and investment, we have a financial system. That's what we call a financial system. Whatever the name you can give to that. What are all those involved in this financial system, or capital market, or financial market, whatever we can call it? Banks, financial institutions, various lending organizations, various finance companies, non-banking finance companies, mutual funds, insurance companies, all of them are part of this financial system. Ultimately, the way they do might be different, but ultimately what they do, they are in the job of converting the savings into investment. That's what happens. So for a simple individual, the consumer, he consumes and saves a little bit. That saving is converted into investment by the financial system. That is what is the way the capitalist economy works. But the point is, how much to be consumed, how much to be saved, that depends upon multiple factors. But what is the major factor that will determine this will be interest rates. Logically, interest rates are going to be the major factor which determines how much will be saved. For common sense purposes, if you understand, if the interest rates are high, then naturally the savings of the people will be high, because people want more return on their investment. So normally, if interest rates are high, people will save more. When people save more, that money can be converted into investment. But here the paradox comes. When the interest rates are high, the same investments will not be high. Why? Because their cost of capital is high. Because the higher interest rates for them, for these people who are saving, for the saving people, this is income. For the investing people, the same thing is expenditure, no? Because they have to borrow money from the banks and they have to pay interest to the banks. And when the interest rates are high, the investment will become low. So that is where the balance in the capitalist economy has to be maintained, so that interest rates are not too high, not too low. Always there is a two sides of coin for anything in a capitalist economy, or for that matter, that is nature also. In this case, just take interest rates as an example. What happens if interest rates are high? If interest rates are high, savings will be high. Good or bad? Fantastic, very good. But bad thing also is there inherently in that. What is that? When interest rates are high, investment will be low, because the loans become costly for the investment people who are entrepreneurs. So interest rates, if they are too high, that is dangerous for investments. Investments will not grow. If interest rates are too low, let us say, other side. Sometimes people think, low interest rates we will keep and we will boost the growth, we will boost the investment and all. That's all looks good, sounds good. But too low interest rates, what they will do? When the interest rates are too low, savings themselves will become low, because in the normal people who are earning incomes, they will not save at all. When they don't save, where is the money for investment? So this is a catch point. Interest rates cannot be too high also, too low also. That is why both things have to be balanced. And that is how the capitalist economy finally, one way we can say, guides the consumption, saving and investment also. All these things are done with inherent points like interest rates, prices of factors of production, buying capacity of the people, and tastes and preferences of the consumers. So every question in this capitalist economy is answered by basically market mechanism, not by any one person. Nobody or one group of persons are sitting in the top and deciding, okay, do this, do that. Nothing happens like that in capitalism. It is the market which decides. And who is market? All participants are together called market. Market will have consumers also. Market will have producers also. Market will have financial intermediaries also. Market will have government regulation also. For example, interest rates and all are not determined by market alone. They are all determined by central banks. In India, we call it RBI. Reserve Bank of India will have a huge role to play in determining interest rates. So these are not going to just happen automatically all the times. With government or government institutions involvement, these interest rates type of things are going to be influenced. However, still, is there going to be any compulsion on the people to save? Definitely no. Is there any compulsion on the people to invest? Definitely no. There is no one centralized direction in capitalist economies. Every answer to these questions is given by market and market alone. What to produce will be answered by the consumers. For whom to produce also will be answered by the consumers. Whereas what to produce is answered by their whims or wishes. For whom to produce question is answered because of their buying capacity or purchasing power. Both are required. We will come to that in the chapter of demand. Demand is only possible when both are existent. Only let us say somebody wants to buy, but he doesn't have the capacity to buy. Does it create demand? No, it will not create demand. You just see some person walking through just some of the shops which are available. He wants to buy, but he doesn't have money to buy. Does it mean he has created any demand because of his wish? No. So both of them put together will only create demand. So the people should have a wish to buy. At the same time, they should have capacity to buy. Then only demand is created. Then according to that demand, what to produce and for whom to produce are answered according to that. How to produce is not a demand thing, that is a supply thing that is coming from the producers, not from consumers. Producers will have to decide which technology they have to use, which technique they have to use to produce, whether capital intensive technique is better, labor intensive technique is better. That's what they have to decide. And that depends upon what? Depends upon the factors of production and their prices. If the factors of production are cheaper, they will go for that factor of production. If the factors of production are costly, they will not choose such factors of production. Like that. It is a decision by suppliers, not by consumers. Or consumers do not have any direct impact on this question, how to produce. Ultimately, it is the availability of resources which will finally answer this question of how to produce. Say for example, electricity also. Electricity in India, we use many technologies for producing electricity. Now we are producing mostly electricity from thermal technology. So what is the input for that is coal. We produce electricity from water also, hydel. The input for that is water, particularly the river water, flowing water. In addition to that, the electricity is produced from nuclear power plants also. The electricity is produced from, say, even sometimes trash also. And electricity is nowadays increasingly being produced from solar also, and increasingly being produced from windmills also. These many possibilities are there, but how to produce will be decided by the suppliers or manufacturers on the basis of availability of the resources, on the basis of the cheapness or costliness of the resources which they use to produce. Gas can be used for actually manufacturing electricity. In fact, petrol and diesel also can be used for manufacturing electricity. Can we afford to do that? We are using coal to manufacture electricity. Can India afford to use petrol and diesel to manufacture electricity? Can power be produced using petrol and diesel in India? No, not possible, because already we are dependent too much on other countries for import of petroleum products. So petroleum products cannot be used for manufacturing electricity in India. Not that we don't have technology, not that we don't have that capacity, because it is costly for us. Maybe for some of the Gulf countries that may be cheaper, because that is abundantly available for them, it is cheaper for them. Petroleum crude is available for them very lower cost, or some countries have a lot of gas reserves. They can use that gas reserves for manufacturing electricity. So how to produce mostly depends upon the cheaper availability of resources, not just upon the consumers. See, consumers ultimately want electricity. All of you are having some electricity consumed every day. Your fan is there running, and television is running, and television and all the other refrigerators, these are all running. But do you know which electricity you are using? Do you care about it? Are you using the electricity that was produced from thermal plant, or are you using the electricity that was produced from a windmill? You don't know anything. Electricity is electricity. Ultimately, the power that you are using is only at an end point. You will never know what is the source of it. That means how to produce is not something related to us. It is related to the producers. What they will think about is whichever the methodology, whichever the technique gives them lower cost, they will choose that. That is the nature of how to produce question. For whom to produce, we will only decide. According to the incomes of the public, for whom to produce will be there. What kind of categories of goods should be produced will definitely change according to the buying power or purchasing power of the consumers. And the topics of consumption, savings and investment depend heavily upon interest rates. Of course, in general, the interest rates are, if not determined, definitely guided by the Reserve Bank of India policies. We call them monetary policies. According to that, interest rates will be determined. According to the interest rates, the consumption pattern of the people, saving pattern of the people, investment pattern of the entrepreneurs will be changing. And this has to be kept not at a too high levels also, not at a very too low levels also. That is a balance which has to be done, a circus which has to be actually performed by RBI, so that the consumption, savings and investment are in balance. Understand this very carefully. All of them are contradictory with each other. Consumption, let us say too much consumption is there. For example, mostly the western part of the world is mostly consumer oriented, consumption oriented economy. People, whatever the money they earn, they consume it fully. There is no much of savings. Like that, Asian part of the world generally is famous for savings than consumption. So that is a mindset. Irrespective of that, imagine some person is having some amount of income. If he consumes everything is consumed, then there is savings. When there is no savings, how can there be investment? And when there is no investment, how can there be growth? You will stagnate. That is why the Western countries, they do not have higher growth rates. Not possible, because already they have reached to a level which is already peak. Once you have reached to the Everest, you cannot go any further from there. There is no possibility. Like that, growth rates will not be there for those so-called developed economies. Why is that? Because of this, because they already reached to a level where savings are not much, consumption is more. Developing economies, they require growth. And how that is possible? Not by only consumption. If consumption is more here, that is going to be dangerous. Everything, whatever the incomes that are earned, if they are consumed in the developing economies, savings will get affected. Savings will be low. When savings are low, investments will be low. When investments are low, growth will be low. That is dangerous. So there should be a balance between consumption and saving. And once there is a saving, a portion of that saving has to be converted into investment. Imagine everybody has saved well in India. Lot of saving is there. If that is not invested in the economic activities, that saving is also useless. No, money cannot create money by itself. Interest people call interest. How interest is possible to be given to money? When that money is used for some purpose, which is a productive purpose, and that purpose gives a return more than the interest, then the banks can give interest to the people. If that is not possible for the banks, then there is no way that money can create more money automatically. So that is not automatic. Money creating more money through interest is also a result of economic activity. By itself, it will not create any money. That is not possible. Only increasing the capacity, increasing the existing stock is possible for animals. If you have, let us say, 10 animals, after 1 year, depending upon the time period available, that may become 15 or that may become 12. Maybe after 3-4 years, the same may become 15-20, like that. So they can increase in the numbers because they have that reproductive capacity. Money cannot increase by itself. How can it increase? Only when that money is actually spent in the productive economic activity. When that happens, that's what we call investment. When that investment happens, which generates good returns more than the interest that is supposed to be paid, then that surplus is what we call as growth. And that is all possible only when savings is converted into investment. And that is the job of the financial system. That is the job of the financial, you can say, industry as a whole. But this entire thing has to be managed within a capitalist economy very carefully with a balance. A little bit more on the consumption will have a problem on savings. Naturally, when there is a problem on savings, there will be a problem on investment and there will be a problem on growth. Let us say a little bit less on consumption. When less on consumption also dangerous, because when less on consumption is there, then people having lesser demand. That could be due to various reasons. Let us say incomes are there, but people don't want to consume, they want to save more. Then what happens? Then also there will be difficulty. Why? When the manufacturers are manufacturing goods, people are not buying, they don't want to consume. They want to save only. So saving is there, but still investment will not be there. Why? Because manufacturers already have excessive capacities which are not consumed by the public. Japan is an example of that situation where consumption is less, saving is more. Even because of that also growth rates are less. So one Western example where consumption is more, saving is less, because of which investment is less. Because of that also growth rate will be lower. And opposite example from Asia, Japan, where consumption is less, saving is more, still investment is less. Why? Because since there is no consumption, no new investment is going to be fruitful for the manufacturers. So that is why everything here, if little bit more this side, the economy will fall. If little bit more that side, economy will fall. It has to be always a balance. Of course, that does not mean 50-50. Don't assume numbers. 50-50 will never be there. Somewhere it has to be balanced, so that too much of excessive of anything is not going to happen. So this balance is what a capitalist economy requires, and that is why it is very challenging in a capitalist economy to keep the growth rates intact and to keep all these things in control. It is difficult for capitalist economy. Why is that? Because it leaves everything into the market. It does not control anything. It does not create any kind of centralized authority which will have a direct influence on these things. That is how the capitalist economies work, and the capitalist economy will have answers to the questions, major central economic problems we can say. That tells us about the features of capitalist economy and how it answers the questions. Each question has a unique type of answers. You need to know those answers to each of the questions. Once again, just to quickly understand, what is the answer for what to produce? Consumers' preferences. What is the answer for how to produce? Cost of the factors of production. What is the answer for whom to produce? Purchasing power or buying capacity of consumers. What is the answer for provisions or consumption, savings, investment? Simply interest rates. Simple way is interest rates, but this is a very complicated area. Though, in a nutshell, this is how it works. This entire mechanism in capitalist economy works like this. That's all. In the nutshell, this is how the capitalist system of economy works, and where we stand is different. As individuals, definitely everybody will be here, and we will have a bit of consumption naturally, a bit of saving naturally. But that money, when we keep it in banks, then the banks will come into picture, and that money will be given to the industrialists, and that will be invested in manufacturing processes or other services, some business purposes. That investment will happen. This is how the capitalism or capitalist economy in a nutshell works in a simple way. It looks simple. Practically it is quite complex and challenging, we can say, because of which the economic growth also is going to be difficult to achieve unless these are all very much balanced well. Clear? That is about capitalist economy. Now just we can quickly go through what are the merits and demerits of capitalist economy. Once again, as I said earlier, merits of capitalist economy become demerits of socialist economy, because these are opposite with each other. Demerits of capitalist economy will become merits of socialist economy. So there will be always good and bad in any type of economy. Once again, we don't have to be judgmental. Though we are by far living in capitalist economy, we are having a lot of advantages also in this. What are those advantages? Let us understand that. First and foremost thing is, it is a self-regulating economy. So what happens? There is no need of any particular influence from the top. There is no need to have a planning commission like thing. No need to formulate any plans like that, monitoring the policies and all that, not required. So capitalism is a self-regulating. Understand in this way, there are certain cars which have, let us say if there is a puncture that happened to the tire, it will self repair itself. So that puncture is going to be filled with a gel and it is going to self-repair itself. That is how the car is running smoothly. Capitalism also generally is a self-regulating kind of economy, and that is why no need to influence that separately because it works automatically. And how it works? Through price mechanism. That is the advantage of capitalist society. And the second thing, very important point, psychologically we can say, psychological point of any human being is that because of private property and profit motive, I would call it a selfishness one way, that is the nature of the human being. It is not a bad word, or we don't have to judge that once again. Every living being is selfish. Because of that, there will be more motivation for the people to work. That will become a driving force. If there is no private property, if there is no profit motive, people might not be really interested to work efficiently, because whether they work efficiently or not, individually what benefit they are going to get is not going to change. Collectively there may be difference, but usually from a psychological point of view, human beings being selfish compared to other animals, also human beings are more selfish. Because of that, capitalism suits well for human beings, since they like their private property and their profit motive is always the driving force which results in greater efficiency. That motivates. So if you have a motivation of earning some or gaining some benefit, then you work in a better way. If you don't have any benefit of working specially, you don't have any personal benefit, everybody will collectively get the benefit, then maybe that much efficiency might not be there. So that is why definitely the private property keeps as a driving force, and that is going to be very motivating factor for capitalist economies, because the people always will be selfish and they have profit motive in their mind. That is the other advantage we can say. Of course, the same thing can be a disadvantage also. Everything which is advantage also can be a disadvantage if it is a little bit over. The same selfishness become too much of selfishness, and that can create problems also. But if it is under control, the same capitalism works well because efficiency will be more in capitalist societies. That is also one of the advantages we can say. And one more thing is the economic growth is generally fast in the capitalism. Why is that? Mostly the reason is same, because the investors, whoever is there in the capitalist society, they will invest in those projects which are economically feasible, because investment happens only in which projects where there is more profit. When there is more profit, that means there is more productive investments. When there are more productive investments, growth is also more. So the cycle of economy runs faster in a capitalist economy. So the growth rates naturally will be more under capitalism. That is one more advantage we can say of capitalism. And another advantage can be where the resources are used in a most productive manner. And we use this word many a time normally, though we don't need to use it since we don't have descriptive examinations, but you should remember this very important term, that is called optimum allocation of available resources. Always we use this word in reality. Optimum allocation of available resources. That is the biggest challenge, and capitalism achieves that challenge, because allocation of resources happens only to those activities which are most productive. If they are not productive, they will not be, resources will not be allocated. Just for sentimental purposes, just for whims and fancies of the people, activities are not going to be given resources which will give better results, which will be most productive. Only those activities will be getting resources, because of which what happens is automatically the optimum allocation of available resources happens in a capitalist society, and most of them are going to be repeated now onwards. So what is this next one? Once again same, operative efficiency is going to be high. Reason once again is same, efficiency, because of people's willingness to get a personal gain will make them to work better. Once they work better, efficiency will be naturally higher, and cost of production is minimized. That is one of the other advantages of capitalism. Why? Because when there is a capitalist economy working and industries are working under this system, everybody would like to maximize the profit. That is the profit motive. How is it possible? How is it possible? Only by employing those types of techniques and methods of production which are cost effective. So they will always try to reduce the cost of production. That is another advantage that capitalist economies and the capitalist can say organizations within that system will achieve. And not only that, they will offer incentives for the efficient economic decisions. Once again, same, it motivates always the efficiency, productivity. These are the words that capitalism uses. Optimum allocation of resources, cost of production to be reduced. So efficient things are always given better incentive. Carrot is there for better decisions. Bad decisions will get a punishment automatically because they will not be able to succeed in the market. They will be forced out of the market. So always good decisions will get better results in capitalism. And not only that, another important aspect is consumers are benefited in the capitalism because competition forces the producers to bring all the products at reasonable prices. This is also another thing which you can experience in real life also. For example, telecom is a practical example in India, where when there was only one operator, particularly say those days it is called Department of Telecommunications, now it is called BSNL, which is a government telecommunication operator in India earlier, say 15 years, 20 years back, then the prices of the telecom services were very high. And even when very few telecom operators in private are given licenses for operating mobile telephony, initially the incoming call itself used to be 1 minute 12 rupees, 9 rupees, like that. I remember 9 rupees per minute incoming call. Forget about outgoing call. Incoming call used to cost 9 rupees per minute. If somebody calls me, I have to also pay money, he also has to pay money. That was the situation earlier. Now we have reached a situation already long back where incoming calls are free. Long back. And outgoing calls are also as good as free. Very much negligible costs almost we are paying for these telecom services. How it was possible? Mostly it is possible because of competition. Because when there is competition, it forces the producers to bring good quality products with reasonable prices. That is what benefits the consumers in capitalism. Not only that, because the consumers have freedom of choice, that gives maximum satisfaction to the consumers. Naturally, when consumers have a choice to choose something what they like, they will be happy. If consumers want a product, let us say everybody wants a particular kind of soap, but that soap is not manufactured, the consumers are not happy, naturally, because that is not available. When it is available, then only they will be happy. So satisfaction comes to consumers when they have freedom of choice, which is provided by capitalism. In socialism, there may not be freedom of choice. While reading or learning all these things, always in the back of the mind, one point to be there. Sir, there is no 100% capitalism, there is no 100% socialism. These are all theories we are talking. In reality, every country will have little bit of capitalistic traits also, little bit of socialistic traits also. Both will be mixed in reality. But if there is a full-fledged capitalism, the consumers will be more satisfied because they have a full freedom of choice. That is the advantage, we can say. And a very important advantage, actually this is a true thing which can be proven also in the past. Capitalism improves innovation and technological progress. This happens definitely well in the capitalism. Innovation happens in a very quick manner. Technological progress also happens in a very quick manner in capitalism. And proof is, once again, the actual life of capitalism itself, once you consider, is not more than 300 years from now onwards if you go backwards. In the history of thousands of years of human civilization, this capitalism as a system has been there only in the past 250-300 years after the industrial revolution that happened in UK, that is in England. Later on it has spread to the other Europe and then spread to the America also. But the West has been the forefront runner for capitalism. And imagine how much innovation happened in these 200-300 years. Unimaginable level of innovation happened. Whatever the humankind has invented, their entire history, say in 3,000 years, or maybe somebody can say 30,000 years. In 30,000 years, what human beings could progress, in 300 years only, the civilization could progress. That is what capitalism actually achieves, innovation and technological progress. Why is that? Once again, goes back to some of the psychological things, because when you have an innovation done, you have an advantage of getting more money. Then definitely your motivation will be high. Bill Gates is not just a businessman, he's an innovator first. Like that, any company you take, the big companies, be it Amazon, be it Google, or be it any other company like HP, most of the companies in the world, they are all top. Why? They are on the top. Why? Because of innovation. A small boy called Zuckerberg now is a billionaire as a owner of Facebook. How is it possible? In capitalism, it is possible because of innovation and technological progress are rewarded. Talents are rewarded. Development of research is rewarded. So people will be definitely interested in doing that. If you are not rewarded, if there is no individual benefit, then people might not have that much of motivation to involve in this much of technological research and other activities. So capitalism definitely offers a huge incentive for innovation and technological progress. That's a fantastic advantage of capitalism. We can definitely say this has been proven well in the past. Though the other things are all there can be questions on them. Whether this is really true or not, maybe there can be sometimes questions on them. But certain things are almost 100% true. This is like psychology of the people is like that. Private property, profit motive. If it is there, if it is not there. Will people work more productively if private property is there or not there? Because they are selfish, they will work only when there is private property and profit motive. So this has been proven already in a psychological level. Not only that, even this also has been proven already that innovation happens when there is an incentive for such innovations. Then only the innovations and research and other things will happen, and that is the advantage of capitalism. Other things are debatable. Yes, growth is fast. People can also ask questions like growth for whom? Only few people are growing, other people are all not growing. So for every other things, there are counter arguments also. But these two are psychological items. So the second point and the 9th point are undoubtedly the benefits of capitalism. Others are also benefits, but they can be questionable. Always there will be other side of argument also. That is another thing. And another advantage, or somehow, once again, though debatable, is that the capitalism will have certain type of fundamental rights. There will be a lot of freedom in the capitalist societies rather than socialist societies. Socialist societies are all mostly command societies. There will be a central command and people will not have as much freedom as they will have in capitalistic societies. Just a recent example if you can take, though it has nothing to do directly with economic models, for understanding purposes, say in European countries, the coronavirus has spread very fast, and America also it has spread very fast. Of course, maybe there are other biological reasons, we don't know them. But even other point also we have to note on one side. These people and these countries, Western countries, have more freedom and rights than China. China was able to control this in a very quicker way because they have a command system there. Means what? If the state tells something, people will have to follow. People will not generally come out and say, "Oh, who are you to tell me? I will do what I want. I have democracy and all." No, generally that will not be there in command systems. I'm not telling in any way that China is socialism. I'm only giving an example for understanding purposes. So in general, the capitalist societies will have more autonomy and freedom, and there will be little bit of democratic principles in capitalist societies. Whereas in socialist societies, that much freedom and autonomy will not be there. Always the state will direct the people what to do and what not to do. Generally, that's what happens. And the 11th one is actually repetition once again. It rewards the people who are better, who have initiative and enterprise, who work hard, and those who are inefficient and imprudent, the capitalist system punishes them. So one way we can say it is survival of the fittest. Capitalist system is more closer to the jungle Raj, where the survival of the fittest will be there. So like in the nature, like Darwin said, whoever is fit, they only will survive. Whoever is not fit, they will not survive. Capitalism also continues with the same jungle philosophy. Whoever is fit, whoever is working hard, whoever has the brains, they will get better rewards. Those who are not, they will get punishment. They will not be getting much of rewards. Logic is simple. See, as a human beings, everybody is equal, no doubt about it. But everybody, will they get same opportunity? Just imagine if, like say, take 10 students as a experimental batch. In that 10 students, are all 10 students going to become the same way equally successful? Not possible. Some of them will get better rewards for their hard work, for their knowledge, for their intelligence. And some people, maybe they are not having that much intelligence, or they don't have that much of hard work, they are not that efficient, means maybe they are inefficient, they will get the punishment of not getting the better career as others. That is the punishment. Not that punishment means some big thing. So the capitalism gives rewards for those who are hardworking, and it will punish those who are not so hardworking and inefficient. That is another advantage of it. So simply, it is following the law of nature. It is not defying the nature. Nature, what it does? Nature also does the same, no? Whoever does the hard work, they will get the reward. Who doesn't do the hard work, they will not get the reward in general. In general, that's what happens. So for even a lion, it will not get the food delivered to its mouth. It is not going to get any door delivery like Swiggy. Lion is not going to get any food like that. It has to hunt, and for that it has to work lot of hours, and so much of hard work is involved in that. Then it will get reward. Just like sitting and sleeping, it will not get food. If somebody is there, if some lion is there which is sitting and sleeping, it will die in the nature. It will not be able to survive. That is how the nature works, and capitalism also mostly works in the same way as nature. So that is another reason why capitalism also has continued one way such a longer period of time, though it is not as longer as the human civilization, but still it still continues with its strength, since it is not defying the nature. Nature always keeps people selfish. So that is one thing the capitalism is not touching. And nature gives for incentives for those who are innovative. That is also there. Like every animal prior to at least human evolution are more or less the same. But humans progressed well. Nature has given incentives because we were innovative. Instead of using hands to kill the other animals, which we cannot do actually, we are so weak compared to them. Once we have tools, once we have some weapons made, then it became easier for us to kill them, those people. So innovation definitely was rewarded in nature. Same thing capitalism also does. And hard work is rewarded in nature. Same thing capitalism also does. And normally the capitalism functions in a democratic framework. That is what we have been talking about. It is not an autocratic system. It is a democratic system. And same thing, once again, 13th point is repeated one way. It encourages the enterprise. Whoever is having entrepreneurial wishes or skills, and whoever has the risk-taking capacity, that definitely will be encouraged by the capitalist economies, not discouraged. That is the advantage we can call of capitalism. These are the positive points of capitalism in general, we can say. Of course, all these positive points of capitalism will become negative points of socialism. The demerits of socialism will be almost the same, more or less the same, which are positive points of capitalism. The demerits of capitalism will become merits of socialism. So once you are looking at one side, automatically it tells us what is the relation or what is the actual position about the other side as well. So that is the aspects that we discussed today. And in this particular unit 2, we talked about what are the basic problems of any economy and what is the importance of those problems in any economy. And now we started understanding and examining how each economy is addressing those questions. And we started with capitalist economy and what are the characteristics of capitalist economy, and how do capitalist economies address the questions that we have, and what are the merits of or advantages, pros of capitalist economy we have discussed so far. In the coming class, we will discuss about the demerits of capitalist economy, and once we know the both merits and demerits of capitalist economy, just reverse them, that becomes socialist economy, and just mix them, that becomes mixed economy. So socialist economy, mixed economy need not be separately very well discussed. Once you understand capitalist economy, anyway, which we are going to study much, which is a market economy, then automatically the other two types of economies also we can understand in an easier manner. That we will do in the coming classes. Till then, take care. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.